Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 13 Pro and compare it against the iPhone 11 and see which particular iPhone is the better one for you. Now, clearly in almost every single way I can imagine, the iPhone 13 Pro is probably the better phone here, but I still look at a phone like an iPhone 11 as still being like a decent device in some ways. Again, it's definitely not perfect, but I do think if you are going to go through and like buy a phone, that phone really isn't that terrible. So we'll take a look at it throughout this whole entire video. First things first though, if you do want to go ahead and pick up any one of these phones, links will be down in the description below. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both these particular phones. The iPhone 11, which came out back in 2019, on the front side of this particular phone is going to be giving you a 6.1-inch Retina IPS panel on the front side. So this is a pretty basic type of panel nowadays. It really isn't that great. If you're going to go through and like pick up a phone, this thing really isn't going to be one of those devices I'd recommend buying. It's pretty basic. You know, it's a very, very lackluster panel. That's kind of the nicest way I can put it. This thing has a notch up top and kind of a decent amount of bezel around it. It's not anything super crazy, but it is one of those types of bezels that when I look at it, it does kind of, it does kind of protrude a little bit. It does kind of stick out. But again, it really isn't like the biggest deal in the world. That's just kind of one of those things you're going to end up seeing. With the iPhone 13 Pro, this is a significantly better panel in almost every single way. This particular phone is going to be giving you the same size display, a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display, but with this panel, it's a little bit different. This panel is an OLED display, so it's already like 20 points better. It's also giving you the notch up top, which isn't a big deal, but it is a slimmer notch, which is kind of nicer. But the biggest thing, not only is it a brighter panel, I think, but it's also giving you 120 Hz. This is without a doubt one of the nicest advantages of being able to go through and buy one of these types of phones. I love being able to go through and like buy these types of phones that are going to be giving you this type of capability, and that is exactly what's going on here. So this type of panel literally wins in almost every single way I can imagine, and this is probably one of the better types of phones that you could still buy that's older. So if you're taking a look at both, definitely the iPhone 13 Pro wins at the front. The bottom, they're both giving you lightning ports, so basically the same type of experience there. Reflective sides all throughout. On the back side, on the iPhone 11, you're getting the standard glass back. With the iPhone 13 Pro, you're getting a frosted glass back. So this is, in my personal opinion too, another really good advantage for the iPhone 13 Pro. It feels much more expensive there and it feels like a much better phone. So if you are about to go through and purchase a device, that one is definitely going to feel like a more premium one without a doubt. And I will tell you, in my personal opinion, I've held a lot of iPhones. There is a very big difference between an iPhone, like an iPhone 13 Pro in terms of build quality, and the iPhone 11. The iPhone 13 Pro is also giving you a triple camera setup on the backside. It's giving you a LiDAR sensor too, which is another cool thing. The iPhone 11 is giving you a dual camera setup, which is nice, but definitely the iPhone 13 Pro is kind of the winner here when it comes down to it from the exterior. So without a doubt, the 13 Pro wins. It's also giving you MagSafe capability, which is another really cool advantage. Now, another very big thing to keep in mind here too is basically the price tag. The main advantage for the iPhone 11 right now is that it is a cheaper phone. You can probably find that phone for like less than $200 in a lot of different places. So that is kind of an advantage there, right? Like if I'm going to go through and buy a phone, that is a major advantage. I really, really do appreciate having a phone like an iPhone 11 that is going to be giving me just a little bit of a cheaper device, but I still think something like an iPhone 13 Pro is still a very, very good phone when it comes down to it too from the price tag standpoint. When it comes down to the cameras, this is also something very interesting to keep in mind here too. Like I said before, both these phones are basically giving you that camera setup on the backside, but the iPhone 13 Pro with that triple camera setup is giving you more capability. You're going to be getting that additional telephoto lens, which that in and of itself is a really nice thing, but you're also going to be getting some other things inside of these phones too. Number one, you're going to be able to get a phone on the iPhone 13 Pro that's going to be giving you cinematic mode. That in and of itself is a really nice thing to have. We do not have cinematic mode inside of our iPhone 11. That might be a big deal to you, it might not be, but that is going to be another very big thing to keep in mind there, in my personal opinion. But on top of that, another very big thing to keep in mind here too is that between both, you're still going to be getting really good capability when it comes down to their, resolutions. Like there's still 4K at 60, which is nice. So beyond that, there's not really anything like super insane going on here. Like they're both very good, but definitely if you're going to want the better, more premium one, it probably is going to be something like an iPhone 13 Pro when it comes down to it. But I would still say in some ways, the iPhone 11, it's not like a terrible phone here either. Like I still feel like if you're going to go through and like pick up some sort of device, like you could definitely do far worse than something like an iPhone 11. So once again, kind of keep that in mind for the most part, but that's kind of how I feel about both these phones. In terms of software longevity, this is also another very important thing to keep in mind here too. If you're wanting the phone that's going to be lasting for a longer period of time, this is also probably going to end up being the iPhone 13 Pro. This phone has the highest likelihood of lasting for a longer period of time, and I do think when it kind of comes down to it, that is pretty much the device that I would recommend buying. So in my personal opinion, if you are going to go through and like pick up a phone, definitely something like an iPhone 13 Pro, it is the one that's going to be lasting for a longer period of time. And that's kind of what I would think about there. Like if you're going to want the newer, better phone, it's definitely probably going to be the iPhone 13 Pro, because that one's going to end up lasting for a longer period of time in terms of software than something like an iPhone, 11. The iPhone 11 is still supported with software though, so don't get it twisted. That thing is still going to be giving you software support for the most part right now. And I do think that is kind of a big thing to keep in mind here too. But, in my personal opinion, I do think if you are going to go and pick up a device, the iPhone 13 Pro is going to be the longer lasting one there. On top of that though, another very important thing is that the iPhone 13 Pro is also going to be kind of giving you better battery life. The iPhone 11 was stated to be giving you 17 hours of video playback, where the iPhone 13 Pro was stated to give you 22 hours of video playback. So if you are wanting the longer lasting phone here, once again, it's probably going to end up being something like an iPhone 13 Pro. Not only is it longer lasting in terms of software, but it's also longer lasting in terms of the, battery life as well. So that's always a really, really nice thing to have there too. When it comes down to the performance, this is also another very important thing to keep in mind here too. When it comes down to both of them, the iPhone 11 is going to be giving you that Apple A13 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 gigs of RAM, where the iPhone 13 Pro is essentially going to be giving you that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM. So in my personal opinion, right, if I'm going to go through and pick up a device, it does make a lot of sense to go and buy a phone like an iPhone 13 Pro, because that one is still going to be the faster one when it comes down to it from that side as well. So like I said, there's a lot of advantages for the iPhone 13 Pro, and the performance is just another one of those types of advantages. And that's something I really do like about these types of devices, because you're able to go through and pick them up. They don't necessarily cost like an insane amount of money, and they're still giving you pretty solid performance when it comes down to it from that side. So in my personal opinion, when it kind of comes down to it, right, I definitely will tell you an iPhone 13 Pro is probably the phone that I would look at as probably being the far superior one in almost every single way. That phone is going to be giving you better capability when it comes down to its, power, its camera, its battery life, its software longevity, everything across the board. The iPhone 11 is going to be the faster device. When I look at something like the iPhone 11, I thought for a while that phone could have been pretty decent, but I just don't think that'd necessarily be a phone I'd recommend anybody to buy anymore. I really do feel like a phone like an iPhone 11 is okay, but it's definitely not that great, and that's kind of the problem you're running into here. So in my personal opinion, if you're going to go through and like pick up a device, like I said before, I think it does make a lot of sense to go and buy something like an iPhone, 13 Pro. And that one is definitely the better one here. If you don't want to buy that one, you can always buy something like an iPhone, 12 if you want to, or an iPhone 12 Pro. But in my opinion, that's kind of the one I'd recommend a majority of people to buy. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there too. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.